Alright, welcome to the fifth chapter. This is going to be the preparation chapter, getting our model ready for texture painting. So the first bit of preparation work we need to do is we need to export our in-game model we've created in Maya, and we need to export it out as a .obj. I like using OBJs during the texturing process at least. It offers the simplest and most universal file type for our model here. So what we need to do is we first need to go to Window, or let's just go ahead and show you the exportation process. So I select my game model and make sure it's your game model. Make sure it's the one that's UV'd. So let's double check it. Let's go to our UV texture editor. Here is our model we have selected. Okay. It is UV'd on both sides, and it looks like it's still optimized. I don't see any other changes we can make. At this point, it's too late to make any changes. Once you bake your normal maps, you cannot change the geometry on your model unless you want to rebake your normal maps. So it's pretty much this is what your game model looks like at this point in development, unless you want to backtrack a few steps. Alright, so I select my game model. I go to export selection, and I look for the .obj file type in here, and it doesn't look like I see it. It should be obj export. I see fbx export, which is another valuable export file type, but I want obj right now. So we're going to have to go in and open up our plugin manager. So let's go to Window, Settings and Preferences, and let's go to our plugin manager here. And let's go and find objexport.mll. Here it is right here. It's unchecked, so that's the reason why it wasn't showing up. So obj export, I check both boxes and I refresh. Now we're going to export our model. But before we do that, I gotta let you know one thing. We gotta triangulate our model here. If we imported this model into Unity, it would triangulate the model for us, but it's always a good idea to go ahead and triangulate the model yourself inside a 3D application like Maya. It just gives you more control. Most of the time though, I just let Maya automate the process itself. So I'll go to Mesh and go to Triangulate, and most of the time Maya does a pretty good job of adding in triangles where they should go. You just want to give it a once over to make sure there's no really skewed triangles anywhere. And if we look at our UV map now, we can see that our UVs are triangulated, so everything looks fine there. Okay, so I'm happy with this. Maya usually does a pretty good job of that. I don't see any weird shading errors, and we're ready to go. We're ready to export this model out. So I'm going to select it one more time. Let's give it one more go. Export selection. And right now I'm just going to save it in my video game prop for Unity 3D folder, and I'm going to call this wall 001 because I might make another wall at some point. Game, or let's call it low poly, and I like to put how many triangles are in the model so I have a quick reference to how many faces we have in there. So 212 tries. And that's about it. So I like to export my selection now. And if I navigate to our folder here, I see I have wall 001 low poly, and I can delete this .mtl file. It's just a material file. Alright, so I got my model exported out, so that's good. Now I need to make a UV snapshot of my model. Alright, so if we open up our UV texture editor, we see our UVs nice and laid out like they are. But we're going to need to make a snapshot of these UV islands here. This is going to be our map in Photoshop. This is going to let us know where we need to paint on our texture map, and what details go where pretty much. So I go to polygons all the way down to UV snapshot, and there's a few settings I want to set. So I'm going to make sure I browse and pick the most logical place to put my map. For right now, I'm just going to use my desktop. and I'm going to call it UV snapshot. I'm going to save it. I'm going to make sure my resolution size is 2048 by 2048. Alright. I'm going to make sure my image format is Targa. Targa is a really good lossless file type, so there's not going to be any distortion of our image. And we click OK, and we see save file at my desktop, and we can see it right here. So here is my normal geometry map, my normal surface map, my wall OBJ, and my UV snapshot. Right now I'm going to take the time to set up a nice folder inside inside my project folder here. Sorry, I got a little confused. Alright, so I'm just going to make a new folder here, if I can. Alright, what's going on here? New folder. I'll tell you what, we'll just dump them in here for right now. Alright, great. So we're going to need to have all of our textures and everything in a good spot. I know what we need to do. File, new, shortcut. It's not letting me make a folder. That is very strange. I'll make a new folder on the desktop here. Folder, we'll call this textures. Alright, and we'll just dump it in here. Alright. Great. Alright, so let's move on. So I have my UV mapped, snapshotted out. I have my normal maps baked out. Now I need to set up a PSD file to start making all of my textures. And we're going to do a few bits of preparation here. First, we're going to make a new image. And we're going to go to our width and height and make it 248 by 2048. An important note here, textures inside of games always need to be a power of 2. So the resolution of your textures should be 16 by 16 pixels, or 128 by 128 pixels, or 512 by 512 pixels, or 124 by 124. But I like to work in 2048 by 2048. That's a pretty large texture size, and it's always better to start large and work your way down. And let's go ahead and call this wall 001 texture. Alright, resolution, that's fine. 72 DPI is great. So we just click OK, and we're instantly given this white background. I'm going to double click this background here and set it to 01. I don't want a background to exist. I want to rasterize that layer there. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up go to my desktop or lectures. I'm going to open up my UV snapshot. Okay, so there's my UV snapshot there. I open it up. So now I need to get my UV snapshot and my wall texture PSD. So I'm going to select all. I'm going to cut, and then I'm going to go into my wall texture and I'm just going to paste like so. I'm going to delete layer 001. We don't need it. And we'll call this UV snapshot in our layers editor right here. Okay? And we got to do a few bits of preparation here. First, we need to go to adjustments and invert our UV map so the lines are black and the background is white. Next, we need to go to our layer control here, and we need to set it on a multiply blend type. Okay, I'll show you why that's important in a second. Alright, great. So let's just close out our old UV snapshot, and we can make our first save to our texture PSD. So I'm just going to go to Save As, save it in Textures, and Save. Yep, compatibility's on. Great. So let's open up my two normal maps now. Okay. So I go here. I will open up my normal geometry and open up my normal surface. I need to do the same thing here. I need to select all. I can do a shortcut by Control and A to select all. I can press Control and X to cut, and I can just come in here and press Control and V to paste. Alright, I'm going to make sure my normal maps are under my UV snapshot. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and just lock out my UV snapshot, and my UV snapshot is always going to be the very top layer here. And look what the multiply does for us now. Alright, normally if it was set on normal, it would still be white with all these black lines. But with UV snapshot set above my normal map, and if you set it to multiply, everything that's white becomes transparent, and now my UV snapshot overlays on top of my normal map, and I can see my UV snapshot and my normal map at the same time now. So I'm going to call this my base geo, because it's my base normal geometry normal, and I'll just exit out of there. We're going to do the same thing here. Select all, cut and paste it, and I'll call this base surface. And I'm just going to make a group folder here in my layer outline, and I'm going to select both of my normal maps and just drag and drop it under this group now. And I'm going to call this group normals, okay, or just normal. All my normal maps will be under this folder inside my layer editor, okay. So here's my base, surface, and geo normals. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and make a few other groups that we're going to need down the line. So in this group, I'm going to call this masks. Alright, I want to make another group and slide it underneath normal, and I'm going to call this AO for ambient occlusion. I want to make one more group and call this, I don't want to place it under AO, I just want to make it go underneath it. Why don't I bring AO above it? I don't want to nest these groups together, right? I just want them to be on the same level of hierarchy. So we'll call this diffuse or color. Let's just call it color. Alright, let's make one more group. I'll raise color above that. I don't want color to be nested in there. It's kind of hard to place them when I'm working on a low resolution for the video. Alright, so let's call this specular. Alright, and one more. We're going to make a glow folder. This will be for emissive maps and glow maps. Alright, and I'm just going to collapse them all. And now I have a nice PSD file set up. I'm going to go ahead and hide my UV snapshot, or rather lock it. And now I'm ready and set up, and I'm ready to start firing with both cylinders and start using Endo and Photoshop to give myself normal maps and textures. Alright, in the next chapter we'll begin the process. Thanks.